My name is Claire Donovan. I'm 38 years old, and the sentence that detonated what was left of my marriage didn't come from my ex-husband or his girlfriend. It came from my daughter. Mom, I'm not going to Dad's anymore. I remember exactly where I was standing when she said it, just inside my own front door, the late afternoon light hitting the living room in that soft, honey gold way that makes even dust look gentle. Her father's car engine was still running in the driveway. Her backpack had just thudded onto the hardwood. I swallowed because I already knew this wasn't teenage drama. My daughter isn't a door slammer, isn't a screamer. She's the kind of kid who notices everything and says almost nothing, until she absolutely has to. I took a breath and tried to keep my voice neutral. What do you mean, sweetheart? It's your dad's week. She looked up at me, eyes ringed with a tiredness I didn't recognize on a 14-year-old. I'm not going back there, she said quietly. Please, can I stay here? If you'd told me a year ago that those words would end with a judge giving me full custody and my ex-husband being ordered to pay me child support, I would have laughed like you'd pitched me a bad TV plot. But here we are. 8 months ago, my 16-year relationship ended. 14 of those years, we were married. My ex-husband walked out of this house for his high school sweetheart, an ex-girlfriend who'd blown back into town like some cinematic storm. I wish I were exaggerating when I say it felt like a bad Hallmark movie. He was the guy who got to ride off into the sunset. I was the woman left standing in the kitchen, holding a dish towel and a mortgage. The divorce itself, on paper, wasn't the worst I've ever heard of. We did the standard custody thing, week on, week off with our daughter, alternating Fridays. I kept the house because I'd bought it before we got married, and I'd kept paying the mortgage from my salary. He took his car, his stuff, and we split the savings. I even gave him a bigger chunk of that savings just to make it go faster. About 15 grand, gone with a signature. People love to tell you divorce is expensive. They don't mention how cheap your dignity starts to feel when all you want is to be done. My daughter, Emma, took it harder than either of us really acknowledged. She's always been observant. She's the kid who notices when you switch laundry detergent or when you're pretending you're just tired instead of saying you cried in the car. When her dad and I sat her down to tell her about the divorce, she didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just went very, very still, like someone had unplugged her. That scared me more than any meltdown would have. Still, we did what adults do when everything breaks. We pretended it was normal. Fridays became exchange days. He'd pick her up after school one week. I'd pick her up the next. There were awkward nods in driveways, quick how are you lies, and the quiet in between where you realize your life is now measured out in shared custody schedules. For a while it worked, or at least it didn't fall apart in any visible way. Then came that Friday. It was supposed to be his week. I was in the kitchen, rinsing coffee cups, when I heard the front door open. I called out, thinking maybe I'd left something in the car or a package had arrived. Instead, I heard the soft thump of a backpack hitting the floor. Emma? I walked into the hallway. She was standing there, jacket half zipped, cheeks flushed from the outside air. Behind her, through the glass, I could see my ex-husband's car in the driveway. The engine was still running. He hadn't even turned it off. Hey, I said slowly. I thought you were going to Dad's this week. She didn't move, didn't bend to pick up the backpack. Her hands were curled inside her sleeves, fingers digging into the fabric. I told him I'm not staying there, she said. I told him to bring me home. Something in my chest did a strange, painful squeeze. Did something happen? I asked. Did he say something? Nothing happened, she answered too quickly. I don't want to be there. Please, Mom. Before I could respond, there was a sharp knock on the front door. That particular rhythm you recognize instantly when you've lived with someone long enough. We both looked at the door. Go sit on the couch, okay? I said softly. I'll talk to him. She nodded, eyes wide, and retreated into the living room. I opened the door and stepped outside, pulling it closed behind me like a shield. My ex-husband, Mark, stood on the porch with his hands spread in that faux, relaxed posture that never fooled me, even when we were married. Claire, he said, tightening his jaw. She's being dramatic. Hi, Mark, I replied. Do you want to tell me what's going on? What's going on is that it's my week, he said, jabbing a thumb toward the car, and our daughter decided she's just not going to come with me. You know as well as I do that if we let her start calling the shots now, it's going to be chaos. I looked past him at the idling car, then through the front window where Emma sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped, shoulders stiff. She doesn't look dramatic, I said quietly. She looks exhausted. He rolled his eyes. She's testing boundaries, he snapped. You're supposed to back me up on this. That's what co-parenting is, Claire. Instead, you're letting her think she can just choose. There's a particular kind of anger that comes after betrayal. It's not hot, not volcanic. It's cold, clinical. It's the kind that watches, takes notes, and remembers. I'm not going to physically drag our 14-year-old into a car, I said. If she says she doesn't want to go, I'm not forcing her. We can talk to our lawyers and figure out what to do from there. His face darkened. Oh, come on, he said, lowering his voice like the neighbors might be listening. This is exactly what you wanted. You've been poisoning her against me since day one, and now you're hiding behind her feelings to get more time and more money. I felt my jaw clench. I haven't said a single negative word about you to her, I answered. Not one. She's old enough to see things for herself. He stepped closer, and for a second, I could smell the cologne I used to buy him for Christmas. Funny how your body remembers before your brain does. You think a judge is going to be impressed you let a teenager dictate custody? He hissed. You're undermining me. You're turning her against me, Claire. I glanced back through the window again. Emma's eyes met mine for the briefest second. She looked like a person on a life raft watching two sharks argue over the ocean. I'm not turning her against you, I said. I'm listening to her. There's a difference. He scoffed. Whatever, he said. You want to play this game in court? Fine. We'll go to court. Okay, I replied. Then we'll let the lawyers handle it. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The car engine hummed behind him, a constant low growl. Emma's staying here tonight, I added. If you want to see her, it'll be through whatever temporary arrangement the court decides. His control cracked for a moment. The easy, charming man he'd been in public slid off his face like a mask losing its glue. You are going to regret this, he said, voice low and shaking. Both of you are. He turned, stomped down the steps, and yanked open the car door. The tires squealed as he pulled out of the driveway, the sound echoing down the quiet street. I stayed on the porch until the car disappeared. When I walked back inside, Emma was still on the couch, arms wrapped around herself. Am I in trouble? She asked. No, I said immediately, sitting beside her. You're not in trouble. She nodded, staring at the floor. Are you mad at me? She whispered. I looked at my daughter, this kid who had watched her family implode, who had sat through awkward handoffs and pretended she was fine. I'm not mad at you, I said. I'm worried, and I'm going to call my lawyer on Monday and find out what our options are. But I'm not going to make you go anywhere you're telling me you don't feel safe or comfortable. Something flickered across her face, relief maybe, or guilt, or both. Okay, she said softly. She stayed. That was a few months ago. Back then, I still didn't know what exactly had pushed her to that breaking point. I didn't know what she'd seen at her father's house, what she'd been told to keep secret, or how long she'd been carrying it. I just knew one thing, sitting there on the couch with my daughter's head finally resting on my shoulder. Whatever was going on over there, we were going to drag it into the light. If you've never hired a family lawyer before, here's something no one tells you. Their calm voice will make you feel like you're not actually drowning, even when you very clearly are. My lawyer's name is Melissa. Late 40s, sharp eyes, soft sweaters, the kind of woman who looks like she should be bringing a casserole to your house and instead walks into court and dismantles people for a living. We sat in her office the week after that Friday. So, she said, folding her hands on the desk, Emma refused to go with her father, you declined to force her, and he drove off angry. Yes, I said. He accused me of turning her against him. Did you? She asked, eyebrows raised. No, I replied. I've bent over backwards not to say anything. She nodded once. Good. Keep doing that. No commentary about him in front of her. No snark. No, your father this, your father that. The court loves a parent who can separate their feelings from their parenting. I swallowed. What happens now? We file for a temporary custody modification, she said. You already have joint legal and physical custody. We're going to ask for primary physical custody for you, based on Emma's stated preference and any reasons she has for it. Will they listen to her? I asked. She's 14, Melissa said. That's old enough for her opinion to carry real weight, especially if she's consistent and specific. Specific about what? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. About why she doesn't want to be there, she said. What she's seen, how it makes her feel. She paused. Has she told you anything yet? I looked down at my hands. Not really, I admitted. She just says she doesn't like it there, that she feels weird. Don't push, Melissa advised. Let her come to you. Kids talk when they feel safe, but when she does talk, listen. And write things down. Dates, times, what she says. Don't embellish, don't interpret, just record. Okay. As I left the office, clutching a folder of paperwork, she added one more thing. And Claire? Yeah? When a teenager flat out refuses to go to one parent's house, courts take it very seriously. Don't let him bully you into backing down. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until my throat got tight. We got a hearing date faster than I expected. In the weeks leading up to it, Emma didn't sit me down for some big cinematic confession. Instead, the truth leaked out of her in small, heavy drops. We'd be chopping vegetables for dinner, or stuck at a red light, or loading the dishwasher, and she'd say something that made my heart stutter. One afternoon, we were sitting in the school parking lot, waiting for her to go into a debate club meeting. She was picking at a loose thread on her sleeve, staring at the dashboard. "Mom?" she asked. "Yeah? Did you know Dad was seeing her before you guys split up?" The air in the car changed. I kept my eyes on the windshield. "Seeing who?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "His girlfriend," she said, "the one he lives with now." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. "What makes you say that?" I asked. She shrugged, but it wasn't careless. It was defensive. "I saw them together," she said, "last year, before you moved out." "When?" My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from another car. "Different times," she said. "He'd have her over when you were at work sometimes. He said she was an old friend. They'd sit in the backyard or in the living room. One time I came home early from practice and they were on the couch." I forced myself to inhale. "And what were they doing?" "They were always really touchy," Emma said, eyes fixed on the thread in her fingers. "Sitting close, laughing at everything. One time I saw them kiss through the window. Just quick, but..." She finally looked at me. "It wasn't just friends." Something behind my ribs cracked a little. "Why didn't you tell me?" I managed to ask. She flinched, like she'd been expecting anger. "I didn't want to make things worse," she said. "You guys were already fighting all the time, and he said you didn't need to know everything, that what happened there was our business." The phrase hit me like déjà vu. I knew Mark, knew his tone, could practically hear him saying it. "What else did he say?" I asked softly. "He'd joke about how you'd overreact if you knew," she said, or say stuff like, "Don't tell Mom every little thing, okay? She doesn't need more drama." And she... Emma's mouth twisted around the word. "She told me that too. His girlfriend. She said I shouldn't tell you everything that happens there, that it would just cause problems." I turned off the engine, even though we still had 10 minutes before she had to go inside. "Emma," I said, swallowing hard, "did either of them ever make you feel responsible? Like you had to keep their secrets?" She stared at her hands. "Yeah," she said quietly. "They said it would just upset you, and that adults' relationships are complicated, that I should be mature about it." Her voice shook on the last word. I closed my eyes for a second. "Did you see anything inappropriate?" I asked, forcing myself to be clinical, like Melissa had told me. She hesitated. "Nothing like that," she said. "Just kissing, hugging, him putting his arm around her, sitting really close, stuff that made it obvious they were together, and then he'd kiss you goodnight and act normal the next morning." The image made my stomach roil. "I thought maybe I was wrong," she whispered. "I thought if I said something and I was wrong, everyone would get mad at me, and you'd be more sad. So I just didn't." My heart broke a little for the version of her who had been standing in doorways, watching adults rewrite reality and being told to help. We sat there in silence for a minute. The parking lot hummed around us, car doors slamming, kids laughing, someone's music vibrating through thin car doors. Finally, she spoke again. "I'm going to tell the judge," she said. I turned to look at her. "You don't have to," I said automatically. "You're the child. This is not your mess to clean up." She shook her head. "I want to," she said. "He made me lie to you. He made me feel like I was betraying him if I told you anything. And now he's saying you're brainwashing me. It's not fair." My lawyer had already warned me that judges sometimes talk to older kids privately, that they ask what the child wants and why. "I just want you to tell the truth," I said. "Not what you think I want to hear, not what you think he wants to hear, just the truth." She nodded once. "I'm telling them all of it," she said. "If they ask, I'm not protecting him." After that, Mark went into overdrive. The texts started early in the morning and sometimes didn't stop until late at night. Long, rambling paragraphs about how I was poisoning Emma against him, how I'd turned her into a weapon, how I was hysterical and vindictive and obsessed with keeping control. Every time my phone buzzed, my shoulders tensed. Melissa's instructions echoed in my head. Don't engage. Forward everything. So I did. I'd screenshot the messages, email them to her, and then respond to him with the same few phrases, if at all. "I'm following our legal agreement. Please direct custody concerns to our attorneys. I'm not discussing this via text." The more I refused to take the bait, the angrier he got. Then his girlfriend decided to get involved. One evening, while I was stirring a pot of pasta, my phone lit up with a notification from a social media app I barely use anymore. A message request from a profile picture of a woman with perfect hair and a wineglass smile. I didn't even have to open it to know who she was. Curiosity got the better of me. I wiped my hands on a towel and tapped the notification. The message was long, self-righteous. It started with, "You need to be a grown woman about this, Claire," and went downhill from there. She informed me that I needed to let go and move on, that I was using Emma as a pawn because I was bitter about the divorce. She wrote that Mark was an amazing father and that she was going to be a stable female role model in Emma's life, whether you like it or not. By the time I got to that line, my vision was doing that narrow, buzzing thing. I didn't reply. I took a screenshot, sent it to Melissa, then I blocked her. Melissa called me the next day. "This is good," she said, sounding almost cheerful. "I'm glad someone thinks so," I muttered. "It shows boundary issues and a lack of understanding of her role," she said. "Judges hate when new partners try to insert themselves into legal conflicts. It makes your ex look unstable." "Stable isn't the first word I'd use," I said. The night before the hearing, everything finally boiled over. It was after dinner. Emma was at the kitchen table doing homework. I was packing her bag for the next day, just in case the judge decided she had to go back to the week-on, week-off schedule. I didn't want her scrambling. Then someone started pounding on the front door. Not knocking, pounding. Emma's pencil froze over her notebook. We looked at each other. "I'll get it," I said. I opened the door only as far as the chain would allow. Old habit, newly justified. Mark was on the porch, face flushed, hair a little wild, like he'd been running his hands through it. "We need to talk," he snapped. "About?" I kept my voice even. "About you turning my daughter against me right before a hearing," he said. "Let me in." "She's doing homework," I said. "If you have something to say it here." He tried to peer past me. "I need to talk to my daughter alone," he said. "You've been feeding her lies. I'm going to fix this." "That's not happening," I said. "She is my daughter," he hissed. "Not just yours." "And she has told both of us how she feels," I replied. "The hearing is tomorrow. We're not doing this on my front porch." Behind me, I heard a chair scrape the floor. "Mom!" Emma's voice was small but clear. Mark's eyes shifted to her over my shoulder. "Sweetheart," he said, softening his tone so fast it made me dizzy. "Come on. You don't have to do this. Your mom is making this into a thing. You know I love you, right? You know she's just mad at me." Emma stepped into view, just behind my shoulder. She didn't move closer to him. "No one's making me do anything," she said. There was a tremor in her voice, but her chin was lifted. "I don't want to go to your house. I told you that. I told Mom that. I'm telling the judge that." His face crumpled for a second before he rearranged it. "You don't mean that," he said. "You're confused. She's been talking about me, turning you—" Emma cut him off with a sharp, painful little laugh. "You cheated on her for months," she said, "with someone you told me not to tell her about. You made me lie, Dad. You said what happens there stays there, that I shouldn't tell Mom everything. That's messed up." He flinched like she'd slapped him. "It's complicated," he said quickly. "Adults make mistakes. You'll understand when you're older. Relationships are—" "I'm old enough to understand that you lied," she said, "and that you made me lie too. I don't want to be part of that anymore." For a moment, none of us spoke. Then he stepped closer, and the chain on the door went taut. "Claire, take that chain off right now," he said. "I'm not leaving without my daughter." "Yes, you are," I said quietly. "You can see her in court tomorrow. You are not coming into my house to argue with her the night before the judge talks to her." "You can't do this," he snarled. "You can't just keep her from me because your feelings are hurt." My own anger finally surfaced. "This isn't about my feelings," I said. "This is about Emma telling us both what she wants and you refusing to listen. I am not going to force her into a car with a man who used her to cover his affair." His eyes went wide, then narrowed. "You're going to pay for this," he said, pointing a shaking finger at me. Then he dragged his gaze to Emma. "And you will regret this, young lady. You get one father." Emma didn't flinch this time. She just took a small step closer to me. "Then maybe you should have acted like one," she said. Something in his expression broke. He spun on his heel, stormed down the steps, and stomped back to his car. Tires squealed again as he sped away, taillights bleeding red into the night. I shut the door and slid the chain back into place with hands that were shaking. Emma stood in the hallway, arms wrapped around her stomach. "Did I make it worse?" she asked. "No," I said, pulling her into a hug. "You told the truth. That's the one thing that doesn't make anything worse in the long run." "I'm scared about tomorrow," she admitted into my shoulder. "Me too," I said honestly. "But you're not alone in there. The judge will talk to you. You just have to be honest. I'll be waiting right outside." She nodded against me. That night, after she went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I never drank, staring at the stack of court documents. I thought about Mark, about the girl he'd chosen, about the way he'd told Emma, "Our business stays here." Tomorrow, for the first time, our business wouldn't stay anywhere private. It was going to be laid out under fluorescent lights, on the record, in front of a woman in a robe whose only job was to decide where our daughter belonged. I went upstairs and cracked Emma's door open. She was asleep on her side, one hand curled under her cheek, the other resting on the open page of a notebook. Her phone was face down on the nightstand. For once, the house was completely quiet. "I've got you," I whispered into the dark, more to myself than to her. Whether or not a judge agreed yet, I'd already made my decision. I was going to keep her safe. The day of the hearing arrived with an unexpected sense of clarity. For the first time in months, I wasn't consumed with anxiety or dread. Instead, I was filled with a quiet resolve, one that had been building for weeks as I watched Emma become stronger, more sure of herself, more willing to speak her truth. The courtroom was nothing like what you see on TV. No dramatic gavel strikes or shocking outbursts, just the steady rhythm of a system that moves far slower than any of us would like, but still keeps pushing forward, piece by piece, evidence by evidence. When we walked into the courtroom, I could feel the tension hanging between us, the thick layer of unspoken words that lingered in the air like fog. Emma's eyes were wide, the corners of her mouth tense. She held her head high, though, like a warrior preparing for battle. And I realized, at that moment, that she had already won, no matter what the judge decided. She had already found her voice, and no one could take that away from her. I sat next to her, keeping my hand close to hers, but not holding it, letting her lead this part of the journey. Her father was already there, sitting on the other side of the room with his lawyer, his usual confidence replaced by something more brittle. I noticed his hands, gripping the armrests of his chair, his jaw clenched in that way that always made him look like he was holding back something just beneath the surface. The judge entered, a woman in her 50s, her eyes sharp, her posture commanding. There was no warmth in her demeanor, only professionalism. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She got straight to the point. "Ms. Donovan," she began, her voice calm but firm, "we're here today to discuss custody and the allegations raised by your daughter. I understand this is a difficult situation, but I need to make it clear that this court is here to determine what is in the best interest of the child." My heart hammered in my chest. Every instinct I had told me to speak, to argue my side, to demand fairness, but I kept quiet, watching Emma instead. She wasn't hiding behind me. She was standing beside me, ready to be heard. The judge turned to Emma, who was sitting across from us, her back straight, her eyes steady. "Emma," the judge said, "I understand you've asked to speak privately. Would you like to tell me what's been going on?" Emma nodded, her voice barely a whisper at first, but as she spoke, it grew stronger. "I just want to tell the truth," she said, "about what happened at Dad's house and how it made me feel. I don't want to be a secret keeper anymore." The judge gave her a small nod, signaling her to continue. "I saw things that I shouldn't have," Emma said, her voice steady now, though I could hear the tremor underneath. "I saw Dad and his girlfriend acting close, too close. They'd be all over each other, and it made me feel uncomfortable. And when I told him that I didn't want to stay there anymore, he made me feel like it was my fault, like I was causing trouble." The room was deathly silent as Emma spoke. Even her father didn't move, though I could feel his tension in the air. "He made me keep secrets," Emma continued. "He told me not to tell Mom about what I saw, or about what was really going on. He said I shouldn't tell her everything and that it wasn't my place." The judge nodded thoughtfully, then turned to Mark, her voice cutting through the room with precision. "Mr. Donovan, can you confirm these allegations?" she asked. Mark's face was pale, his lips tight. He took a moment before speaking. "That's not how I remember things," he said, his voice unsteady. "It's not as simple as she's making it sound." The judge didn't flinch. "I'm asking for the truth, Mr. Donovan," she said. "Your daughter is old enough to make her own decisions, and her account has been consistent. This court will not tolerate manipulation or pressure. If you have any evidence to dispute her account, I suggest you present it now." Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but he said nothing. His lawyer leaned in and whispered something to him, but Mark barely reacted. It was clear he didn't have an answer. The judge looked back at Emma, who was holding it together better than I had imagined possible. "Emma," the judge said, her voice softening slightly, "thank you for your bravery today. I know this isn't easy, but I admire your strength. Emma nodded, her lips pressing together in a tight line, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. I reached over, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. The judge turned to both of us. "I've heard enough to make a decision," she said. "It's clear that there has been a breakdown in communication and trust, and that the living environment with Mr. Donovan has caused significant distress for his daughter." Mark's face twisted as if the words physically pained him. "I'm ruling in favor of primary physical custody being awarded to Ms. Donovan. Mr. Donovan will have supervised visitation every other weekend, with the potential for unsupervised visits after a period of 3 months if the child is comfortable with it. Child support will be calculated based on income, as per the state guidelines." I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Emma's eyes found mine, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled. A real smile. A smile I hadn't seen since before all this began. "I will also be recommending therapy for both parents and child to address the underlying issues and facilitate healing," the judge continued. "And I advise both of you to focus on what is best for your daughter. This court will not tolerate any further manipulation or attempts to alienate her from either parent." With that, the judge ended the session, and the room began to clear. Mark's face was a mixture of shock and anger, but his lawyer quickly ushered him out of the courtroom. I stayed with Emma for a moment, her hand still clutching mine. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded slowly, her gaze distant for a moment before it refocused on me. "Yeah, I am now." I hugged her, feeling the weight of everything that had happened, everything we'd been through, settle between us like a soft breath. This wasn't over, but it was the first step in a new chapter. One where Emma was free to feel what she needed to feel, and I was free to protect her, no matter what. When we left the courthouse, it felt like the world had shifted. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was carrying the weight of my past. I felt lighter, like we were finally moving forward. As we stepped out into the bright sunlight, Emma turned to me. "You're not mad at Dad, are you?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "No," I said, shaking my head. "I'm not angry with him, but I'm not going to let him hurt you anymore. You're my priority now, and I'll always make sure you're safe." She smiled up at me, and for the first time in a long time, I saw her smile without fear or hesitation. We walked home together, our steps in sync, ready for whatever came next.